Level 1. The recruit. The door closes behind you. No badge, no uniform, no ceremony. Just a grey conference room inside a building that officially doesn't exist in any government directory, any congressional budget, or any org chart you've ever been cleared to see. 3 people sit across the table. No introductions, no small talk. A folder slides toward you. Inside are photographs, a bank transfer dated 11 days ago, a passport scan, someone you recognise, a surveillance photo of a man walking through Prague at 6:17 a.m. The man in the Prague photo is your former supervisor. You don't react. One of the 3 people is already watching your face for that. One of them finally speaks. You know why you're here. You nod. Because 2 weeks ago you said yes to a question nobody outside this room ever hears. Not would you serve your country? Something quieter, something colder. Would you operate where the country can't admit it sent you? And the folder closes. A new one replaces it. Your first assignment isn't glamorous. It's clerical. You work inside a secure operations wing buried 4 floors underground in Langley. Windowless. No phones. No outside networks. The air smells like recycled air and old coffee and something chemical underneath that nobody talks about. Your job is called asset maintenance, which means you handle people the government officially doesn't know exist. As you process payments through shell NGOs in Cyprus and Luxembourg, you verify encrypted dead drop messages coming in from Minsk, Karachi, Belgrade. You read transcripts of conversations recorded by people who are risking prison, or worse, on the other side of the world right now, while you sit under fluorescent lights and type their secrets into a database. You learn the first rule quickly. Information is currency. Not courage, not patriotism. Information. A colonel in the Latvian Defence Ministry sends troop movement schedules. He gets $6,000 a month through a cancer research charity account in Geneva. A telecom engineer in Tehran leaks server access credentials. She gets her younger brother's student visa approved and a wire transfer she'll spend the rest of her life pretending came from a dead uncle. Every favour has a price. Every price is logged by someone like you. You process 14 payments your first week. The 14th is different. An asset in Istanbul sends a location pin and 4 words. Coming in, tonight, alone. You forward it to your supervisor. She reads it, closes the window, and says nothing. 3 days later, the payment account is frozen. The file is archived. A new file opens in its place. Same city, different name. The machine doesn't pause. It just finds a new gear. That night you understand the second rule. Assets disappear. The system doesn't mourn. It replaces. After 4 months, you stop flinching at the bullet points in the morning briefings. Asset Cardinal, arrested. Minsk, Asset Foxglove, communications dark, 72 hours. Asset Sunroom, status unknown. Your job isn't to feel that. Your job is to keep the machine running. Then, one morning, your supervisor closes your workstation screen and says 3 words. Field evaluation, Monday. Level 1 is over. You don't feel ready. That's how they know you are. A level 2, the case officer. The first thing they take is your name. Not legally, operationally. You are now David Mercer, Regional Logistics Consultant, employed by Stratford Advisory Group, Vienna. A company with a real address, real registered employees, real client invoices, and 0 actual clients. You get a passport, an apartment paid through a Shell LLC, and a phone that routes through a private satellite network registered to a shipping company in Malta. And then they assign you your first asset. His name is Thomas Vanek. He is 34 years old. He works night security at a telecommunications switching centre in Bratislava. He has a daughter named Lena who is 8 and has asthma. He owes €22,000 to a private lender who charges interest at a rate that was already illegal 6 months ago. You meet him at a bar called Pivnica Stara twice a month. He thinks you're a corporate intelligence broker who pays cash for infrastructure data. You buy him drinks, always Pilsner, never anything stronger, because you need him functional. You talk about soccer. You talk about Lena. You slide him envelopes with €3,000 inside. In return, he plugs a flash drive into a server rack during his night shift. 12 seconds of contact. That's all it takes. Simple, clean, until it isn't. 3 months in, Thomas shows up 20 minutes late. His hands shake when he drinks. His left knee bounces under the table and doesn't stop. They ask questions today, he says. Not the police. Internal security. A man from the main office sat in a room with him for 2 hours and asked about his finances, his habits, whether he'd spoken to anyone unusual recently. Someone noticed unusual access patterns on the server logs. Now you're in the real game. The training kicks in so fast it surprises you. You don't reassure him. You don't comfort him. You give instructions. Burn the flash drive tonight. Stop all downloads immediately. Yeah, wait 3 weeks. If anyone approaches him again, he walks away and contacts you through the emergency channel only, a number he memorized and will never write down. You leave €10,000 instead of 3. Fear costs extra. Over the next year, you recruit 2 more assets: a customs officer processing shipments through Klaipeda port and a junior defence ministry analyst who went to school in London and quietly resents having come home. You are good at finding what people want, but you are better at finding what they're afraid of. You keep meetings under 14 minutes. You never use the same cafe twice. You memorize the exit routes of every building you enter before you find a seat. Your reports start getting flagged as exceptional. Then, one winter morning, February 3rd, 6:48 a.m., a secure message arrives on your satellite phone. Vanek, Thomas, detained, 0442 local. Counterintelligence action, apartment searched, cover integrity, compromised. Matt, you read it 3 times. Protocol is simple. You disappear. Within 48 hours, your cover company has relocated you to Warsaw. A new passport is waiting at a dead drop behind a loose brick on Ulica Freighter, and Thomas Vanek is somewhere in a detention facility you will never find. With people asking him questions he will eventually answer. You send the final operational report. 6 lines. Clinical. No adjectives. You don't sleep well that week. You think about Lena, the daughter with asthma, and what happens to her now that her father's income has vanished along with her father. But 2 months later, you recruit another asset, and you don't think about Thomas anymore. That's the moment you understand what this job actually costs. Not the danger, not the secrecy, the part of yourself you trade away, incrementally, in exchange for effectiveness. You've stopped being a person inside the operation, you've become a function of it. Level 3 doesn't ask if you're ready. It's already started. Level 3, the field operator. Your assignments stop involving cafes and flash drives. Now they involve warehouses, border crossings in the dark, vehicles with plates that don't exist in any database, and men who sit beside you for 8 hours without asking your name because they already know that's not how this works. You transfer into Special Activities Division. Tier 2, Support Operations. Unofficially, inside the division, people call it the quiet side of the quiet service. You run logistics for operations that never appear in diplomatic briefings, congressional oversight summaries, or the president's daily brief. They exist in a different category entirely. Verbal orders, burned documents, outcomes that register in the world without any visible cause attached. Your first mission takes you outside Tbilisi on a Thursday night in November. A safe house holds a laptop belonging to a Georgian arms broker named Rustam Jalilov, who disappeared 4 days ago in a way that suggests he didn't choose to. Your team needs the drives before local FSB-affiliated contacts, who were almost certainly the ones who made Jalilov disappear, sweep the apartment. You cross the border in a refrigerated cargo van with 2 former ranger contractors who go by Dex, and the other one doesn't offer anything. Nobody uses real names. You break into the apartment at 2:14 a.m. The door lock takes 11 seconds. You counted. Inside is chaos. Someone came before you. Drawers ripped out, floorboards pried up. The laptop is gone, but the desktop tower under the desk hasn't been touched. The external hard drive is still plugged into the back. Screwdriver, 30 seconds. You're back out the door. On the return leg, 2 miles from the checkpoint, your radio crackles. Police patrol. Stationary, lights off. It parked across the main road. Your driver doesn't slow down. He turns onto a farm track through a vineyard and drives blind through the dark for 6 kilometers without headlights, navigating from memory. By sunrise, the drive is sealed inside a diplomatic pouch on a commercial flight to Frankfurt, then Dulles. Your after-action report says, operation successful, no contact with local authorities. But that's not the moment that changes you. The moment comes 4 months later. A surveillance handoff in Tunis goes wrong because an informant named Farid, who you paid €8,000 and trusted on the word of a case officer you've never met, sold the meeting location to the opposing side before the ink dried on his receipt. Gunfire in a market alley at 11:40 a.m. 2 people from your extraction team don't come back. One of them, you learn later, had been in this work for 19 years, had a daughter named Sophie, had 6 months left on his contract. You weren't the one holding the rifle, but you approved the location. You read Fareed's file and decided the risk was acceptable. Your supervisor doesn't reprimand you. He asks one question. What will you do differently next time? That question is the real promotion, because it means the system has decided you're the kind of person who has a next time, the kind of person who files the lesson and moves on, rather than the kind who needs to stop and process the weight of it first. You start sleeping 4 hours a night. The other 4 you spend staring at the ceiling running scenarios. You stop calling it guilt. You start calling it operational analysis. The system rewards results. Your clearance expands. You start seeing files marked deniable, and then files that don't have a classification marking at all, just a number and a date and a name. You stop asking where the boundaries are, because you already know there aren't any. There never were. The boundaries were a story for the early levels. Level 4 is waiting, and it has no story for you, just a decision and a GPS dot and a clock counting down. Level 4, the operator. The phone rings at 2:13 a.m. Operations Center. Priority tasking. You are no longer assisting missions. You are running them. 3 teams, 4 countries, assets, contractors, satellite surveillance windows, financial channels that move money through 6 jurisdictions in under an hour. You sit in a secure control room in a building that officially doesn't exist, watching encrypted feeds from places you've never been, making decisions that affect people who don't know you're watching. 14 months in, an extraction goes sideways in Kazakhstan. An asset, a chemical engineer named Armen Bekov, embedded for 11 months inside a procurement network acquiring precursor materials for a weapons program, is compromised at 0300 local time. Someone talked. His cover is gone. The local security forces are 6 minutes out. Your extraction team is 18 minutes away. Bekov is carrying physical documents that cannot be allowed to surface in hostile custody, not because of what they reveal about him, because of what they reveal about the network's connections. Connections that lead, through 4 layers of cutouts, back to a signals intelligence program that 43 other assets currently depend on for cover. You stare at the screen, a green GPS dot. In Bekov's satellite phone, moving on foot, 2 blocks from the safe house. Your supervisor is in the room. He says nothing. This is deliberate. The person running the mission decides. You authorize the extraction. 18 minutes. They arrive in 22. Bekov is down in an alley off Abilai Khan Avenue when they get there. He is alive for 11 minutes after they reach him. Not alive enough. The documents are recovered. The signals program stays intact. 43 assets keep their covers. Nobody questions the call, because the system doesn't reward perfect outcomes. It rewards decisive ones. Over the next 3 years, you manage $47 million across black budget accounts that cycle through a Caribbean holding company, a Norwegian shipping firm, and a Hong Kong family trust. You learn which senators on the Intelligence Committee quietly approve the funding, and which ones ask questions they don't actually want answered. You learn which foreign services will look the other way for a wire transfer, and which ones need a different kind of currency. And slowly, outside the system, your life goes quiet. Your relationship with a woman named Julia, 4 years, a shared apartment, a dog she named after a city you can't tell her you've been to, ends not with an argument but with a gradual disappearance. She says it feels like you're already gone before you leave. She's right. You've been doing it for 2 years. Now the dog stays with her. You move into a furnished apartment near the office. Temporary, you tell yourself. You say that about everything now, but your reputation inside the system is growing. Your calls get returned faster. Your requests get approved at levels above your rank. That's what leads to Level 5. Level 5, the handler. Now you manage people who remind you of who you used to be. Case officers in their first postings, running assets with shaking hands. A field operators convinced that the work is still separable from who they are as people. Young recruits who believe, genuinely, that loyalty runs both directions inside this building. You remember believing that. Your office is inside a restricted wing where entry requires biometric clearance, and the doors are soundproofed, and nobody on the other side of the wall knows this wing exists. You oversee operational theatres across Eastern Europe, the Gulf, and 3 countries in Southeast Asia whose names don't appear in your reports. They appear as letter codes because the exposure risk of an actual country name in a written document is, at this level, considered unacceptable. Assets number in the hundreds. Some of them don't know their assets. That's your favourite kind. Budgets approach $200 million annually. You approve recruitment targets. You terminate compromised assets. That phrase sounds administrative until you understand what terminated means at this level, and then it sounds like something else entirely. And then, after a while, it sounds administrative again. That's how you know you've been here long enough. One afternoon, a junior officer named Chen, 28, Yale, 2 years in, good instincts, requests approval to recruit a cybersecurity architect working inside the satellite command infrastructure of a hostile government. The target's name is Marcus Holt, dual citizen. Security clearance on both sides of the line. He has a gambling problem Chen found buried in transaction records from a Macau casino, and a principled objection to his government surveillance programs he's expressed carefully in 3 separate private conversations Chen's been recording for 2 months. High value, high risk. If the recruitment burns, it triggers a diplomatic crisis and buries Chen's career, and possibly Chen. You approve it anyway, because the access is worth the risk, and because you can read people now, not just files. And Chen is the kind of officer who won't burn it. 3 months later, Holt delivers remote access credentials to a satellite uplink system covering a theatre you've been partially blind in for 2 years. Suddenly, you can see things. The kind of things that change how generals plan and where ships move, and which conversations in which capitals are worth the cost of recording. Your name doesn't appear in the report. It never does anymore. But the operation that surfaces 6 weeks later does have your fingerprints on it, and those fingerprints are a problem. A counterintelligence flag inside one of your North African networks, an asset in Tripoli. A port official named Karim, who has been reliable for 4 years, goes dark after sending a single cryptic message. The room has new walls. Internal investigation. Quiet. Thorough. It takes 11 days to trace the leak back to one of your own case officers. A man named Drayden, 7 years in, who sold network access to a French intelligence contractor for €340,000 over 14 months. Not ideology, not coercion, just money, the oldest one. You report it. 48 hours later, Drayden's clearance is voided, his files are sealed, and his existence inside the system is quietly deleted. You never find out what happens after that. You don't ask. Because by now you understand the deepest rule in the building. The system protects itself first, always. Officers are replaceable. The architecture isn't. You are about to become part of the architecture. Level 6. The Director of Operations. Your office now has windows, not because anyone thought about your well-being, because the people at this level are expected to have windows, and expectation, inside a building built entirely on the management of perception, is not a small thing. You oversee covert operations for an entire branch of the agency, hundreds of active missions, thousands of personnel who fall under your authority through chains of command. Most of them don't know, reach this far up. Every morning starts with a classified brief summarizing the previous 12 hours. A drone strike authorized through Allied air assets over a location that will be attributed to a different government, an asset exfiltrated from Minsk through a diplomatic convoy, hypothermic, documents sewn into a coat lining. A cyber operation that has been quietly dismantling the financial infrastructure of a sanctions-evading network for 9 months without a single public trace. You approve some. You cancel others. You sit in rooms where decisions are made that will never be acknowledged, and the people in those rooms have stopped pretending otherwise. and that shared understanding is its own kind of intimacy. Your left knee has started aching every morning. An old injury, a vehicle rollover in 2009 that you reported as a training accident because the actual location was a country you weren't supposed to be in. You take ibuprofen at 6 a.m. and ignore it for the rest of the day. You have learned to ignore things efficiently. Then comes the year that defines your career. A foreign intelligence service. You know which one. The reports know which one. I said, but the reports say state-affiliated hostile actor begins systematically burning American assets worldwide. 5 disappear in 6 months. 1 turns up dead in Vienna. 1 simply stops existing. No body, no trace, which is worse. Washington's message is 4 words. Stop it. Stay quiet. You spend 60 days designing a counter-operation that has no name in any written document. Cyber infiltration of their internal communications network. In financial sabotage of 3 senior officers' personal accounts. Not enough to destroy them. Enough to make them suspects in their own organization's eyes. A disinformation campaign seeded through back-channel intelligence shared with 2 allied services who don't know they're being used as delivery mechanisms. Within 14 months, their network fractures under internal paranoia. 3 senior officers are recalled. Recruitment operations stall across 4 theatres. The burning stops. Officially, nothing happened. Unofficially, inside a specific set of rooms in a specific building, you are the person who ended an intelligence war without firing a shot or leaving a single attributable fingerprint. You feel, briefly, something like pride. Then you read the casualty list from the year. 6 assets lost, 2 officers permanently disabled, 1 unaccounted for, and you file the feeling away with the other things you've stopped letting yourself feel in real time. Your knee aches in the elevator. You take the stairs instead. Level 7, the architect. You no longer run operations. You design the conditions that make operations possible. Multi-year influence campaigns. Intelligence infrastructure built in countries that don't yet know they'll need it. Proxy relationships cultivated a decade before the proxy becomes useful. You sit in rooms with people whose names don't appear in press briefings, whose titles describe functions that bear no relationship to their actual power. National security advisors who are officially retired. Defense planners who technically work for think tanks. Foreign intelligence chiefs who arrive through back channels and leave without having been officially present. Your role is to shape the invisible battlefield before anyone else knows there's going to be a battle. The budgets at this level reach into the tens of billions, distributed across structures so layered that a forensic accountant working for a decade couldn't fully reconstruct the architecture. Proxy networks exist across 6 continents because of decisions made in your conference room. Some of those networks don't know they're proxies. That's the point. The strangest change isn't the scale, it's the distance. You no longer see consequences. Operations happen continents away and arrive in your briefings as outcomes, percentages, assessments, strategic shifts. The human cost is abstracted into phrases like operational losses and collateral exposure and acceptable degradation of asset networks. One evening, you're reviewing old case files from your Level 2 posting. You find Thomas Vanek's file, his arrest record, the 6-line operational report you wrote afterward. You sit with it for longer than you expected to. Thomas would be 51 now. If he's alive, the file doesn't say. You would have to make 3 calls to find out, and you don't make them because you understand what that says about you, and you've decided, a long time ago, that understanding a thing and changing a thing are not the same obligation. You close the file. The system doesn't allow nostalgia. It requires momentum, and you have been momentum for so long that stillness feels like a failure condition. But there are nights, 3 a.m., in a hotel room in a city you're not officially visiting, when the shoulder that dislocated in Tbilisi in 2011 aches through the medication, and the ringing in your left ear from a Kandahar overwatch position in 2008 is louder than usual, and you are 60 years old, and your body is a catalogue of things that happened in places you can't name. And you lie there thinking about Thomas and Bekov, and Sophie's father and Farid, and all the names and all the GPS dots. Yeah, and you wonder what they would say if they could see the architecture their sacrifice helped build. Then morning comes, and you go back to work. There is one level above you. You've known about it for years. Level 8, the ghost. There is no ceremony for this, no briefing, no new badge, no title. You simply reach a point, somewhere after 40 years, and after the decisions have accumulated enough weight to become their own kind of gravity, where you understand that you are no longer a person who works inside the system. You are something the system built, and something the system built is not the same as something the system controls. You stop appearing in organisational charts. Your office moves out of Langley entirely. You operate through private briefings, sometimes with the director. Sometimes with people whose authority exceeds the director's in ways that are not visible in any succession document. Young station chiefs request your read on operations before they launch, not because they're required to, because the operations tend to go better when they do. Foreign intelligence chiefs treat meetings with you like negotiations with a sovereign state. But the strangest thing about this level is how quiet it becomes. Your phone rings less, not because the world is calmer, because the machine runs without you now. You built it to. The redundancies you designed, the training programs you restructured, the recruitment pipelines you rebuilt after 2014, all of it is running. You are the architect walking through the building after the tenants have moved in. You live simply. A house in Virginia with a garden you maintain yourself. An old dog, a border collie named Kira, who has no interest in your former clearance level. It morning walks on a path that loops through 2 miles of trees. You read real history, the unredacted kind, the kind with all the parts intact, accessed through channels that will remain open for the rest of your life. Sometimes you read an account of an event you were inside, and the distance between the official record and what actually happened is so vast that it becomes, after a while, almost funny. Almost. There are mornings when it isn't funny at all. Your right knee requires a brace now. The shoulder dislocates if you move it wrong. Twice in the garden this spring, once reaching for something on a high shelf, which is a humiliating place for an old injury to announce itself. The tinnitus is constant. Your doctor calls your health remarkable for your age, and you don't tell him what your age has involved. 3 months ago, a message arrived through a channel that officially ceased to exist in 2018. A name, a problem, 2 sentences. You sat with it for a day and a half. But then you made 1 phone call, 14 minutes long, to a person who owes you a silence that goes back to 1997. 3 weeks later, the problem was resolved in a way that left no trace back to you, to the division, to anything at all. You returned to the garden and planted something. You can't remember what. This is what power looks like when it has fully matured. Not dramatic, not loud, not cruel, particularly. You've known cruelty, and this is different from that. Though you understand how someone on the outside might not see the distinction. It is simply the quiet, total certainty that you can reach into the world and move it, and no one will see your hand. You earned it. You paid for it. You're not entirely sure those are the same thing. The dog is getting old now. Some mornings she doesn't get up for the walk. You sit with her instead, on the back step in the early light, while the garden goes about its business and the world turns, and somewhere, in a building in Langley, in a hotel lobby in Vienna, in a cargo van crossing a dark border, the machine keeps moving. It always keeps moving. Somewhere right now, a door is closing behind someone. A grey conference room, a folder sliding across a table, 3 people watching a face, looking for the reaction, or the absence of one. A question nobody outside that room ever hears. Would you operate where the country can't admit it sent you? They'll say yes. They always say yes. And the file that's been open on them for 14 months simply moves to the next stage. They have no idea what they're agreeing to. They'll find out at level 3. By level 5, they'll have stopped needing to know. And someday, if they're good enough and hard enough, and willing enough to keep trading away the parts of themselves the system requires, they'll sit on a back step in the early morning light, an old dog beside them, a garden that doesn't know any of this happened, and they'll understand the final truth. You never really leave. You just become the thing that stays. Somewhere, a folder slides across a table. The cycle continues.